Hi there, good evening to you. Coming up on BBC London. We hear from Housing Association tenants in East London living in damp and mouldy conditions they say are making them sick.
We're treated like peasants, like we're not good enough to live in decent homes. That's how I feel, and I think a lot of the people feel like that as well.
Also ahead this Monday.
An investigation is underway after a North London cemetery's Muslim section was possibly vandalised over the weekend.
Plus, still not reunited with their van trapped in a car park for 2 years. The latest on the mystery of the missing motors, as others say it's happened to them. And making the most of our outside spaces, how can they be more wildlife friendly on a budget? Hello and a very warm welcome to the programme. First tonight, the group of tenants from East London who for years have complained of damp and mould in their homes are now working with lawyers and medical professionals to fight one of the country's biggest housing associations. Residents from the Nags Head estate, including Lorraine here, say conditions in their homes are affecting their health and previous repairs have only been a quick fix. Peabody Housing Association says it invested £1 million in improvements last year and it will take time to resolve all the issues. Here's our work and money correspondent, Megan Owen.
So this wall was painted last year, and as you can see, it's not dry. You can feel the humidity, you can feel how damp the wall is.
You can smell the damp as well.
You can smell the damp.
These are what Lorraine calls quick fix solutions to years of widespread mould, damp and disrepair on the Nags Head estate.
It's still full of mould down there.
She's one of dozens of tenants who've been fighting Peabody, recently helped by lawyers and medical professionals.
I feel like we're treated like peasants, like we're not good enough to live in decent homes. That's how I feel, and I think a lot of the people feel like that as well. In the long term, you would think they would put in the money to fix the problems long term rather than keep coming back every week, keep coming back. It's costing more money, ain't it?
Elsewhere, the mould is clearly visible. The tenant in this flat, who doesn't want to be named, says 2 months after flagging the problems to Peabody, they washed the mould off the walls, but it quickly returned.
Not only can you see the mould pretty clearly, but if you touch the carpets, you can feel how damp they are. And you can also smell it in the air as well.
Conditions like these are likely affecting tenants' health, says Charity MedAct.
We've seen really extensive issues with damp, mould, leaks and disrepair. And we've also seen that people are reporting really high rates of health problems, particularly respiratory, but also affecting mental health. And we think those things are linked. The evidence is there that there are those links, and it's likely that that's really what's going on here.
Fatima, who now uses a nebulizer to help her breathe, says her respiratory problems started when she moved to the estate 16 years ago.
On June 2009, I started to have symptoms for COPD, for lung problem. I don't blame myself, I blame the house.
The whole family have been affected, including her children, who now sleep with a dehumidifier.
I would wake up and my face was sweating, not sweating, but like there was water all over my face.
They moved out for 3 months last year whilst Peabody conducted repair work. But Fatima says the fixes were only cosmetic.
I'm really worried about the combination, maybe between water and electricity. What's going to happen if we sleep? Are we going to wake up? No one knows, just Allah.
Peabody says last year they invested over £1 million on improvements here and are committed to designing a £3 million plan with residents. They added, unfortunately, it will take time to resolve all the issues. Social rented homes cost far more to run than the rent can cover, making it an exceptionally challenging situation.
What is your message to Peabody?
Get the job done. Get the job done. We've had enough.
In October, new laws will mean landlords for social housing in England will have to fix damp and mouldy properties more quickly. But tenants here want a long-term solution to stop the mould returning.
Well, we should say that we did invite the Peabody Housing Association for an interview last week to answer some of the questions raised in that report. They declined. We asked them again today, but they said our request was too last minute. But I'm pleased to say that Megan joins me now. And Megan, this highlights a wider picture in social housing, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think there are a couple of wider problems going on here. I mean, first of all, a lot of the buildings of these housing associations are older. We saw the Nags Head estate there. That was built 80, 90 years ago. So a lot of the damp and mould problems are structural and will require more investment. But secondly, and this is what Peabody told us as well, there is the issue of overcrowding, which they say is part of London's housing emergency, as there aren't enough family-sized social homes. In fact, the wait list, according to National Housing Federation in London, is 27 years. But of course, in the meantime, you've got people living in these conditions, in these mouldy and damp conditions, which is something that housing campaigner Kwejo Tweneboa knows all too well.
The residents that have reached out to me, the only reason they reach out to me is because they've knocked at every other single door and been ignored. And there is that stigma. You're lucky to be in social housing. There's nothing to be complaining about. But when it comes to your child, when it comes to conditions, when you're being treated less than a human being with a lack of basic human decency and respect that we all deserve, then something is seriously wrong. And when it comes to fixing these issues and costs, yes, we can talk about building houses, but treating people as a human being and with basic human decency and respect costs nothing. Yet it is the biggest issue when we talk about the housing crisis and social housing in particular.
That was Kwejo Tweneboa, as you say, housing campaigner, talking to my colleague Eddie Nestor on BBC Radio London. Moving forward, what about the government? What are they doing to help address this?
Well, in their spring statement, they did announce an extra £2 billion that they're going to put towards building more affordable social homes. But also in October, we're expecting a WABS law, which is named after a 2-year-old who died from mould exposure, which will make it more stricter for landlords to investigate and fix damp and mould. OK, Megan, for now, thanks very much indeed. You're watching BBC London. Lots more ahead this Monday, including...
On National Gardening Day, I'm at a London community garden picking up some green skills on how to spruce up urban spaces.
Police in Hertfordshire are appealing for information after the desecration of graves in a cemetery in Carpenters Park. A large number of graves in the Muslim burial section were damaged and are believed to be the final resting place of young children and babies. From Watford, Vincent McAviney sent this report.
Well, this is the Carpenters Park Lawn Cemetery in Watford, where over the weekend, around 85 graves here in the Muslim section were vandalised. We're told a large number of those were children and babies' graves. Now, it was a family who were recently bereaved visiting a gravesite here on Sunday who made this discovery. Some graves were reportedly subjected to unspeakable acts of disrespect. Now, Hertfordshire police have described it as a horrendous crime, but they are keeping an open mind as to what has happened in this incident. Senior officers are said to be working with local Muslim community leaders to try and identify the families which have been most affected. Now, this grave site is in Watford, but it is owned and managed by Brent Council. Their leader, Mahmoud Butt, said, "Our thoughts are with the families of those whose graves were desecrated." He said it looks as though Muslim graves have been targeted in what appears to be an Islamophobic hate crime. The police say they will be stepping up patrolling in this area. They're urging any witnesses who might have seen what happened at the weekend to come forward with any information.
Vincent McAviney reporting from Watford. A quick look at some of the day's other stories. A 90-year-old woman has died after a house fire in south-east London. The London Fire Brigade was called to Nithdale Road in Plumstead just before 2 a.m. The cause of the fire is being investigated. And passengers are being warned to plan ahead before disruption to railway services in London over the long Easter weekend. There'll be no trains in or out of Euston from Saturday to Easter Monday, and southeastern services out of Victoria will also be affected by works in the Battersea area. Next, you may remember our recent exclusive story about a family business whose van has been trapped in a central London car park for more than 2 years, leaving them thousands of pounds out of pocket. Let me explain. It's the type where they use platforms and lifts to park vehicles on top of each other. Apparently the issue was a mechanical malfunction. We've now learned that dozens of other vehicles have also been trapped. And what's more, we've been told that the car park was fixed weeks ago. So why haven't the owners been reunited with their vehicles? Matt Graveling has been catching up with the story we first brought to you last week. First tonight, imagine your vehicle being trapped in a car park for more than 2 years. That's what's happened to the owners of a small family-run business after...
1 week on from this coverage, and Steve still has no van and very few answers.
No, nothing. No, they've kept very quiet. You speak to someone and you say, we parked our car in this stacking system 2.5 years ago and we haven't got it back. And they're unbelievable.
It was at this development, Rathbone Square, that Steve's van was placed in a mechanical stacking system used to park cars one above another. But the system broke down and Steve couldn't get his van back, but still had to pay off its loan and rent another vehicle. He estimates he's now £40,000 out of pocket. Millions of you read this story, and BBC London has heard from other residents who say they too have had their vehicles stuck for more than 2 years. One telling us they believe there are as many as 40 cars trapped. And there's more. We first brought you this story on the 8th of April. Now, at the time, nobody involved would answer any of our questions. In the days that followed, we have had some answers. And BBC London can now report that apparently the stacker system has been working for a month.
Hopefully we can get back to normal, but anger at the fact that someone's dragging their heels and we don't really know who.
So here is what we do now know. Double Parking Systems are the company who maintain and repair the stacker system. They said,
when a major fault occurred in December 22, we responded quickly. Unfortunately, the main causes of the delay were prolonged procurement approval processes and delays in receiving specialised parts from overseas suppliers, factors entirely outside of our control. Vehicle access was fully restored on the 15th of March.
The company who installed the car park is German firm Klaus Multi Parking. They said,
we responded immediately and initiated the necessary measures to procure replacement parts. We have no control over when and how the necessary measures will be coordinated and implemented on site. We have been informed that the system has now been repaired and is fully functional again.
So if the system is working, why has nobody had their vehicle returned? I asked a company called CBRE, who are the property manager at Rathbone Square, to explain the delays. However, the only response I had was to tell me they have been informed that repair works are now complete and they hope to receive further information in the next few days so they can update residents as to how they can retrieve their vehicles.
We can guess that it's the insurance companies who can't decide between themselves who's going to pay us, but we don't know that for certain.
In January 2024, a barrister working for one insurance company said forensic scientists had inspected the system to determine the fault. Steve says he was promised a copy of this report. This never arrived. The BBC is aware of at least 2 insurance companies involved in this issue. One is believed to insure the building, the other believed to insure the stacking system. Neither responded to our requests for comment. Matt Graveling, BBC London.
And we'll keep across that story. Now, it's hard to imagine not being able to remember your early life, all those special memories, decades vanished from your mind, except the past few years. That's what my next guest experienced after a stroke. Here she is in a TED Talk describing how it feels.
If you can imagine that you went to bed last night, woke up today in a different city, and you don't know how you got there. That's what it felt like.
That was Carol Pike speaking at a TED Talk after having 2 strokes 6 years ago. She's living with retrograde amnesia, which means limited conscious memory, and is using her experience to help and coach other people to rebuild their lives. And I'm delighted to say that Carol joins me now. Welcome to you. Where do you begin in rebuilding your life when you have little memory of who you were?
I think the interesting thing about that is that I didn't know it was about rebuilding a life. all I knew was that I was still alive and I had to find a way to navigate this unfamiliar world.
And what was that process like of getting it back?
I think it felt like an adventure in so many ways because it was new, it was fresh, and it was exciting on one hand, and then sometimes frustrating and challenging. But it was just like, I'd never been on a bus before, and so that was exciting, yeah. Or I'd never been on a train before, so that was exciting.
And forgive me, because you're smiling and almost sounding childlike as you say it. I know that you say you're an eternal optimist. That obviously helps.
Well, I think that one of the things that I recognised was that this must be what a baby feels like. Born into an unfamiliar world, you have to learn how the world works and then how to operate in it. And that's what it was. It felt like, okay, I'm here. I have to find a way to navigate this for myself.
And what about the support around you?
Well, that was kind of challenging because, as you've said, I look this way and I actually show up like this 100% of the time. So I actually don't look like I have a challenge.
And one of the things that you're so passionate about is that you teach others as you do a lot of support work for other people. Just tell us a bit about that.
Well, one of the things that I've recognised on this journey is that who you think you are is foundational, because the voice that you hear all of the time is your own. So if you don't think that you're a winner, if you don't think you're a champion, actually you're never going to be able to navigate it in that way. And I've come up with what I call the Sparkle concept. It's a Sparkle philosophy. And the Sparkle equation is to know who you are, understand the value you bring to the table, and then show up unapologetically on purpose. There is no imposter syndrome. You're not comparing yourself to other people because this is me. I can never be you.
It's fascinating listening to you. It really, really is. What advice would you give to other people, or perhaps family members or friends, you know, who know someone that this has happened to and perhaps is struggling with their memory?
I think that memory is really important because our identity and all of the things that we learn comes from memory. But what we forget is that we can make intentional memories now. That we have been taught to tell time incorrectly, that the only time that actually exists is now. And now is the gateway between yesterday and tomorrow. But we spend so much time trying to recoup what's happened or focus on what's going to happen.
So acceptance as well.
Yes.
Okay.
That this is where you're living, enjoy the moment.
Okay. Very poignant words to leave it on. Carol, thank you so much for coming in. Really interesting to talk to you. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Carol Pike there. Well, an incredible woman, as I'm sure you'll agree. Turning now to some incredible volunteers who give up their time to help keep people safe around our waters 24/7. As many people kick back to enjoy the Easter break, the RNLI is warning us all to take care, especially when it's tempting to go for a splash when the sun is out. Our reporter Jessica Ure went out with the RNLI at Southend.
A rescue on the water is a race against time for the RNLI. Here in Southend, the station is one of the busiest coastal stations in the UK, with an average of 120 call-outs a year.
Southend are the only RNLI station to operate 4 lifeboats, including an inshore rescue hovercraft. Everyone you see here is a volunteer, and in total there are over 100 of them.
So we get a lot of people walking out in the mud that get cut off by the tide, so we have to come out and sort that out. We get quite a lot of people that have gone out for the first time in the year on their sort of personal watercraft, jet skis, speedboats, things like that. And then again, a lot of people just enjoying the water and finding themselves in some difficulty with their paddleboards, kayaks and things like that.
And conditions can change quickly. 2 weeks ago, they rescued a man from the water who was moments from drowning.
We saw the casualty clinging on to a timber former jetty post, and we were unable to get the boat in closer, so the only way to rescue the casualty was to enter the water, in which I did against a fast-flowing tide.
This is the busiest time of the year for the station, with families flocking to the coast from across the country. But it's not just the tide that gets people into trouble.
The spring tide comes in at a faster pace than you can walk. We've got some very sharp shellfish out here which will cut your feet to pieces and once your feet are cut to pieces, you're stopped, you're stuck.
Here at Southend, because we are on an estuary, the tide does come in and out very fast, so it's being conscious and not just walking out on the low tide, but being visually aware and wearing appropriate footwear and clothing.
Going at 17 knots.
And with the busiest season approaching, there's always a need for more volunteers.
So my day-to-day job, I'm an open water swimming coach in Southend. So on the water most weeks, more so in the summer. So have a real good knowledge of how the water in our local area works. There's a number of roles, you don't have to go out on crew. There's a number of roles back at station and behind the scenes that are just as important.
The advice today applies further than Southend. Know the tide times, tell someone where you're going, and if you need help, call 999 for the Coast Guard. Jessica Yore, BBC London.
Well, with spring in full swing, many of us may feel the urge to create our own urban oasis, whether we have a garden, a balcony or window box. But what if you're not green-fingered, like me, and don't want to spend a fortune? As it's National Gardening Day, Bhavani Vaddi has been to a community garden in Ealing, helping Londoners grow with confidence and on a budget.
It's that time of year when the buds are blossoming and the weather is warming up, and many of us are thinking of sprucing up our outdoor spaces. And today is National Gardening Day, which aims to celebrate our connection with nature and encourage us to get our hands dirty. Here at Dig in Hanwell, they do just that. It's a community garden that's all about making gardening accessible and joyful. Romina, you're gardening coordinator here. Many of us in London don't have big spaces. What can we do if we want to be more green-fingered?
Here you can use some pallets, you can repurpose them. As you can see here in the garden, we've used 4 pallets, put the flat side internally, fill with membrane, and then use them to grow some plants inside, and also hang some pots.
And some tools.
And some tools on the side.
Yeah.
And depending, you can also add some more slats and then put more pots.
And Romina, even in small urban spaces, we can increase biodiversity quite easily, can't we?
Yes, you can use wildflower seeds and mix them on a ratio of 5:1 with sand. The sand will help you seeing where you spread the seeds.
And you can plant that anywhere?
Yes, in any small areas.
Do we miss out as Londoners connecting with nature in the urban environment?
I think that's the common belief. So they don't see the space as something that could be a garden, when often even a balcony can be a garden. We've found that coming to a community garden is the ideal solution. It's a bit different to having an allotment, because that takes a little bit of commitment and there is some pressure to know what you're doing. So the community garden is a good first step, and you can join when you're ready.
So whether you have your own green space or not, it is possible to boost your mood, get moving and grow your own, all without leaving the city. Bhavani Vaddi, BBC London.
In my case, we shall see. Well, we've recently had the sunny weather, haven't we, to enjoy the outdoors, but it's possibly all changed this week. Kate is here to tell us more, and I have a feeling that you are green-fingered.
Depending on who you ask, not really, but I'll say I am, just to make it look good. The rain is on its way. Now, we haven't had any rain really for a month or more. So tonight we'll see a change in the weather. So gardeners will be a bit grateful because we are a bit parched. Now, for this morning, it was a really bright start. Loads of sunshine, very little in the way of cloud, as you could see. But the cloud moved in as we headed through the day. Now, we haven't had too many showers, just little spots of rain in the thicker areas of cloud. Now, it has been edging towards us. This front is staying where it is. It's not coming any closer, but we've got another one which is coming up from the south, and that's going to bring this more significant, persistent rain through the night. It also brings some milder air, so the temperature overnight between 8 and 11, so mild, but it does lead to a rather wet start tomorrow morning. So plenty of rain overnight into the first part of Tuesday, but it will gradually start to lift. Now, the low pressure, which is bringing the more unsettled conditions this week, is on top of us. So slow moving showers expected tomorrow. You can see these, the colourful
powerful ones mean they're going to be a bit heavier. You might get a rumble of thunder because we've got some sunny spells as well. And as the heat of the day gets going, it could spark off in this unstable air those showers. So temperatures tomorrow a little bit milder than today. We're looking at a maximum of 18 Celsius. Then overnight, we've got this low pressure. It starts to lift away northwards, taking those showers with it. But overnight on Tuesday into Wednesday, you can see the isobars squeezing together. The wind is actually going to strengthen into Wednesday morning. Now, we've got a largely dry day on Wednesday. Can't rule out 1 or 2 showers. It's breezy, but we've got some decent spells of sunshine. Temperatures on Wednesday getting up to around 15, so a little bit cooler again. It is a bit changeable. It is quite up and down. Now for Thursday, also looking largely dry. You can see that low pressure lifting away, high pressure building there. So we have got some drier conditions for Thursday. Plenty of sunshine around, but you'll notice just coming in from the west, more low pressure, so it is going to turn changeable. Of course, we're heading into a very long bank holiday weekend. So despite these dry days on Wednesday and Thursday, Good Friday comes and I'm afraid things turn a little bit more unsettled. Into the weekend, now the outlook is looking fairly dry. We can't rule out some showers. It is quite changeable. It's not looking too bad. Not a complete washout anyway. We should at least get a little bit of dry weather and a few sunny spells. Riz?
Sounds good. And of course the gardens need the rain, as I keep getting told. Kate, thank you. And that is where we leave you this Monday. And of course, plenty more stories on our website, including some lovely pictures of London's Sikh communities celebrating the Festival of Vaisakhi this weekend. Aaron Paul is back tomorrow morning with BBC Radio London's breakfast show from 6. From me and the team, thanks for being with us and enjoy your evening.